Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Sorry for the interruption. We've been well edified today. Living soil is the medium of life, and from which all life springs, maintains itself, and returns. It is like water and air. It is a critical natural resource. Soil is comprised of both living and non-living elements that together provide the basics for maintaining life on the planet. We are made of soil, as is all organic material, plants, animals, microbes, fungi, and bacteria. The health and quality of your soil determines the potential of everything growing on your property. Living soil has a crumb structure, and it's important to be able to understand what that is, what that looks like. A typical soil in good condition is composed of approximately 45% mineral matter, 25% air, 25% water, and 5% organic matter. Soil structures describe the size and shape and friability or crumbliness of the aggregates of the soil. The aggregates are formed from sand, silt, clay, organic material bound together in minerals and organic cements. The crevices and spaces in between the soil aggregates are important habitat for soil biota. They also are critical for holding moisture. While soil texture cannot be easily changed, soil structure can be improved through good management practices. Stable soil aggregates are the underpinning of a healthy soil habitat. Here, fungal hyphae, organic matter and minerals, organic cements known as glomalin hold the materials together. Soil's texture and soil structure have the greatest influence on the pore space in the soil and how easily the air, water, and roots can move through the soil. Let's see. Now this is a compacted soil, and it's probably what we see mostly in the Western countries. And a soil like this is very, very tight. Water is not able to be penetrated, and so the water is not able to be utilized in the soil. Commercial salt-based fertilizers destroy soil structure and soil microbiome, going from living soil to dirt. And so generally speaking, this is what we call dirt. The soil food web is really, really important as far as having living soil. If you have dirt, you really don't have the living components of the soil. So it's critical to be able to create a situation where the soil food web can actually exist. You'll see the plant's roots produce an exudate that actually feed the bacteria and other components of the microbiota, and then of course they come back and help feed the rest of the soil. It is only through the soil food web, there you go, that we are able to grow plants. Plant symbiosis, or the gut flora of the soil, are the microbiome, or the microbes. Only when the bottom food chain is working well is when the plants function well. So it's important to be able to have spaces, or as well as the food for the microbiota. During the summertime when things are growing, and of course it's a living plant that feeds the soil food web. There we go. Microbes are the pathway for the food for plants. So in order to create living soil rather than have dirt, there are 5 basic components that we're actually going to talk about today. 5 environmental conditions need to be maintained to have a living microbiome and to create a living soil. Managed for these basic conditions will create an environment that helps to take care of the needs of the plants. 1, The microbes need air to breathe, water to drink, food to eat, minerals with which to build their bodies, and of course the microbes themselves need to be present. It's critical and important to be able to have a soil that allows the air to penetrate and go through in order for the microbiome to be able to be present as well as the plants. O2 in the soil and how to maintain and support it. Soil with a crumb structure is loose and has pockets for the air to circulate. Now, how is that maintained? It's usually through making sure that you have the adequate amount of cover on the soil, either a green cover or some type of a mulch. Plowing or tillage after winter because the soil is tight or hard, it usually will destroy the remaining structure in the soil. Cover will allow the soil to remain alive and maintain the loose crumb structure. So it's important to keep the soil covered. The act of keeping the soil covered is keeping the soil alive, which keeps it aerated. If you don't keep the soil alive, then it turns to dirt. Mulch on the soil is a winter food storage for the microbes. Mulch to preserve soil life and the microbiome. Mulch on the garden is the cellar or the food storage for the winter. Now we all understand how it works for summertime because we all work to be able to see the plants. But many times, as soon as a garden is done, we have a tendency to rake everything off the soil and leave it bare. When we do that, we are killing the microbiota that we actually created during the summer. So in order to keep the microbes alive, we need to be able to have growing plants whenever we can, and non-growing season mulch. The mulch is a stockpile of sugar. The more cover you have in the soil, the more protection is present. And so we realize that if we really want to create a live and living soil, we cannot allow the soil to be uncovered because it actually will break down the living soil. So what are the ground covers that we can use? There's a lot of different materials, whether it's straw, leaves, hay. Next one. But you can not only the brown ground cover, but also using cover crops or green is also important. The more you're able to keep the living roots in the soil, that of course that is what creates a living soil. Go to the next one. Water is essential for living soil. Water should be clean without chlorine or fluorine. If you only have chlorinated or fluoridated water to use, then you need to use filters or humic acid to remove and bind the chemicals. It's important to maintain soil moisture. I know with many irrigation systems, we have a tendency to only put the water right where the plant is. But in order to be able to maintain a strong microbiota in the soil, we have to be able to have moisture throughout the garden. Cover crops can help maintain ground cover, and many of the ground covers can be rye, oats, vetch, buckwheat, sunflower, barley, cowpeas, medic mix, and many others. Of course, there's also the effect of tidal force in order to keep the water on the garden, keep moisture. Keeping moisture in the soil is critical for the life of the microbiome in the soil. So you need to be able to have some way to be able to maintain water on the soil. Having a way to, either through flood irrigation systems, sprinklers, drip, etc. But rather than just only where the plants are, usually it needs to be covered throughout the whole garden area in order to keep life going. Okay. Live plants produce exudate to feed the microbes during the growing season, and the winter mulch and cover crops are what feed the microbes. Mulch on the garden in the winter is the cellar of food storage for the microbes for the winter. Cover crops also feed the microbes. Having live roots in the ground allows us possible to feed the microbes. Practices to provide soil cover, protect the result and accumulation of organic matter, maintain healthy plants and avoid compaction, improve soil structure and increases micropores, minimize soil tillage and handling. So again, we realize that the cover of the soil is really critical. When it's uncovered, then of course, we reduce the ability of the microbiome to stay alive and maintain a healthy living soil. This little saying I find says it all. Mother Nature is modest and also always desires to be covered. And so you'll notice if you till someplace, you'll get weeds. And that's nature's way of being able to cover Mother Nature and keep her covered. But if you have a cover crop or mulch or something on the soil, then usually the weeds don't need to come back in order to keep the soil covered. Minerals. Minerals are important in order for the microbiota to be able to maintain a healthy activity and build their own bodies. There's many things that can be used. Next one. Usually rock dust or the basalt rock dust is recommended as an amendment to soil, but there are many amendments that can be used, such as azomite, sea salt, seaweed, green sand, or other dust in order to be able to give the soil the minerals that are necessary. However, there is a caveat. If you're not able to keep the soil moist, then it usually doesn't do any good to amend, because you have to have the active microbiome in order to be able to utilize the minerals properly within the soil. So in order to have a live soil, not only do we need the components that I've mentioned, but life itself needs to be there. That can be introduced when you seed by using a seed inoculant. Go to the next one. It's essential to establish the microbiome for the seeds and adding soil to the live. Other inoculations can be used, such as compost, compost tea, EM, or effective microbes, or foliar sprays. Now, on this short talk, I've just basically introduced some basic ideas. And if you want to be able to learn a lot more about these basic principles, I would suggest going to bionutrient.org. There, Dan Kittredge gives a 12-hour class that will break down each one of these components in a manner that you can truly understand. If you sign up for the newsletter, they'll give you a link where you can actually watch the class. Amazing, amazing information. Thank you.